going to be talking about my experiences of migrating WordPress sites to Docker. It's not going to be a deep dive session, certainly not in 5 minutes. If I go too fast, hopefully you can watch the video again on Graham's recording at half the speed or something like that.
In 6 months' time or something like that.
Right. First off, introductions. I'm a polyglot developer with an ops background. I'm also the sysadmin for Santana Limited, which is a company run by my wife and myself and our dog. And we create we're a small business that creates websites for other small businesses. So, just wanted to talk a little bit about our previous setup. It's a virtual private server, and what that is, if you haven't heard of this before, is a dedicated Linux server with admin access. It was at a monthly rate, and I was using for WordPress the LAMP stack, which I think everyone's familiar with. Okay. The new environment is a cloud service, and basically what that is it's the previous service with a few bells and whistles. You've got now an hourly rate rather than a monthly rate. You've also got API, which allows you to create or customize your servers or your services programmatically. And I've also made the jump, in addition to Docker, to the LAMP stack. And if you're not familiar with the E-bit, that's Nginx rather than Apache. And now I'm going to give you a crash course in Docker in just one slide. Right. So on the left-hand side is doesn't matter whether it's virtual or whether it's a physical server. This is pretty much what a lot of people's WordPress stacks look like, or certainly what ours did. One of those applications there, that can take app one on the left there, would contain WordPress site, Apache, MySQL, and I think that's it. That is pretty much what I'm calling a traditional setup. In Docker land, as you can see, there's very little difference in terms of the layers, but the main thing to think about all those three apps there is rather than them being the one silo, you've actually got on the left-hand side, that's Nginx, the middle is SQL, and then the third is your PHP backend processor. Bit of terminology. The applications, or the instances, are called containers. These in turn are based on templates, which are called images. So if that's a bit too light, feel free to grab me after the talks and I'll try to give you some more details about that. So, why did we choose Docker? Well, unfortunately last year we got breached through one of our websites, and what that basically meant was, because we ran everything in VPS, the VPS was compromised as well. So if our websites had been contained or in a container, it would have been sandboxed, and basically what that means is that that website would have been compromised, or the other websites and the main host would be left intact. The images you use, as I mentioned before, are templates. You can see the source code on GitHub, and everything that Docker builds on these images are reproduced using the build server. So the main thing here is it's reproducible. This is a good thing. It means that there's no little notebook that you have to make custom notes about things about your setup. Each container has a specific role. No, you're not trying to do everything with just one of these servers. Again, it's web, database, or PHP framework. Because everything is reproducible and explicit, you could pretty much link your entire environment to another provider with Docker, or if you've got a site that's running hot, you could put that on a dedicated Docker environment. And whilst it's not Docker specific, because of this flexibility, I was able to test out loads of different configurations repeatedly. It's almost like a rapid development, and I found that the Nginx environment gave me a better footprint than Apache, which I suspect most of you guys already know. So, why should you choose Docker? Democratizes technology just like WordPress. WordPress gave us websites for everyone. Docker's trying to give us infrastructure for everyone. And The migration process is pretty much this. If we forgot about the doc bit there, that's pretty much what you would do to move this to another host. Now, it does look straightforward, and it quite is. You've got some Docker's provided a bunch of tools that you can use to do this. So to set up Docker, you don't actually have to do the dreaded, okay, I've got to set up my VPS, I've got to do apt-get install Docker. They've actually got a tool that will create the Docker to their specification on any of the popular cloud providers or on your own environment. Cloud providers being AWS, DigitalOcean. And in terms of the restore, the Docker client has a bunch of subcommands that allow you to create the containers and restore WordPress from the file level also to the database restore. So, what did we learn from migrating our first site? I should probably clarify now that we started migrating our dev sites rather than any of the live sites at the moment, because I figured that was a risk willing to take. Right. First thing we found was restoring the files back into a Docker environment. Because it was a different variation on Linux, some of the file ownerships got trashed. If you find that you can't upgrade your plugins or WordPress, or you start getting prompted for FTP credentials, it's probably the same problem. It's easy enough to fix. All you have to do is set the ownership of that directory, that's what WordPress for in Dockerland is expecting to use data. And if you take that command and stick it in front of the other Docker command, it will do it for you automatically without you drop down, get into the nitty-gritty of the Unix shell. The other thing that you find out is that you don't have any mail services. The Docker team are against the kitchen sink approach. That only the things that are absolutely needed for your application to run will be left on there. It's important to store something, otherwise you can miss out on warnings. In our case, we use the Postman SMTP plugin. In terms of security, I use fail2ban to monitor logs to find out bad behavior and block the IP addresses. But because your container now, your WordPress site lives in a container, you can't see those logs. So thankfully, there's a WordPress plugin that can called WordFence, which is a drop-in replacement for IP blocking. In addition to that, I added two-form authentication on all our admin accounts. And even if you don't use Docker, it's probably good to have these in your WordPress security toolkit. So, in summary, WordPress on Docker is easy, but it's actually harder to, sorry, I'll rephrase that again. Brand new WordPress site on Docker is easy, but it's harder to maintain one or migrate to Docker. There are tools available, Kitemat being one of them, which is trying to put a GUI to every one of Docker's product sets. And then finally, moving to Docker could be easier. Thankfully, there's an app for that, and I'd like to probably submit my own contribution, something called Hyper-Ironclad, which is a toolkit that's going to hopefully make that a little bit easier for everyone to move to Docker. Thank you very much.